Hello! Welcome back to Wednesdays with Finn. Welcome to the midpoint of our unit on the Kings of Judah. Yeah, sorry guys, Judah lasted a lot longer before they got taken into captivity, which is frankly shocking to me. How was Judah always on fire? I mean that literally because Jerusalem gets beat more often than a bass drum at a Metallica tour. Seriously, can we stop invading Jerusalem? Okay, thanks. We left off with King Ahaziah. You might remember him as the son of Jeroboam, who only reigned for a year. Dog was all like, hey, yo, you know how following the ways of the house of Ahab got my father killed by a prolapsed rectum? Yeah, I think I gotta do the same thing. Remember kids, friends don't let friends follow the house of Ahab. I mean, friends also don't let friends force other people into religious prostitution, but I feel like that applies a little bit less to us. You know, it could just be me. Anywho, here's how he died. Joram is king of Israel at this point, right? Joram gets injured in battle. Ahaziah hears about said injury and says, oh, I'm gonna go visit Joram. Okay, so you may remember me mentioning a guy named Jehu once or thrice. So he was anointed to take out the house of Ahab, right? Joram had aligned himself with the house of Ahab, and you know who else had aligned himself with the house of Ahab? Ahaziah. All the followers of the house of Ahab are getting got by Jehu and his crew, and Ahaziah's like, not feeling it, and he skedaddles. Jehu and the dudes succeed in taking out Joram and his entire crew, and then, because Ahaziah has skedaddled, Jehu sends his crew to go get Ahaziah, and they succeed. They bring Ahaziah in front of Jehu, and he is killed. Now Ahaziah is dead, and his mother is displeased. Our next ruler is unfortunately Athaliah. Athaliah was the mother of Ahaziah, and upon hearing about her son's murder, she reacted. Her immediate action was to just start killing off the royal family of Judah and insert herself as queen. In fact, the only reason anyone survived at all was because Jehosheba, the sister of Ahaziah, smuggled Athaliah's grandson Joash out of the palace and hid him in the temple for like 7 years. This being the temple where her husband Jehoiada was the priest. So for 6 years, Athaliah rules Judah, everyone hates her, and it's great. Meanwhile, Joash is chilling in the temple, learning about the law, learning about covenant from Jehoiada, best boy, the best priest. We love him. We stand Jehoiada in this house. Year 7 comes around and Jehoiada's like, all right, we're doing this. Let's do some revolution. Was Joash 7 years old? Yes. But apparently that's old enough to be king. I say this because the entirety of Judah revolted and they raised up Joash as king. Let's be real though, Jehoiada was the one in charge. Jehoiada was the one who crowned Joash and ordered Athaliah's execution. And as long as Jehoiada was alive, Joash kept to the law. Joash even repaired the temple and in the process held Jehoiada to account for the people not paying their taxes to maintain the temple. And then Jehoiada died. And not even 5 minutes later, Joash is worshiping idols. Once Joash turned away from God and started worshiping idols, the rest of Israel did the same because the Asherah poles had still never been taken down. Guys, tear down the Asherah poles. Seriously. Joash's actions piss off Zechariah, who is the son of Jehoiada. So Zechariah goes up to Joash and is like, bro, what gives? What are you doing? And Joash is like, how dare you hold me to account for my actions? In return for this accountability, Joash had Zechariah stoned to death. With his dying breath, Zechariah asked God to hold Joash to account, which he did, because a year later the Arameans invaded Judah and just carried off everything. Very little was left in Judah after the Arameans left, especially in Jerusalem, and Joash was left severely wounded. So, Joash's officials conspired against him and killed him for killing Zechariah. This brings us to our next king. Amaziah was the son of Joash. To quote 2 Chronicles 25:2, he did what was right in the sight of the Lord, but not wholeheartedly. He started off his rule by killing off the officers who killed his dad, but he was super nice about it because he didn't kill off their entire families too. Amaziah is remembered mostly for going to war with Edom for seemingly no apparent reason, and in so doing, hiring a bunch of Israelite soldiers from Ephraim who he then had to fire because God had told the nation of Judah several times in the past not to hire these Israelite soldiers. Those Israelite soldiers then got super mad and went throughout the entire countryside of Judah and killed 3,000 people. If that isn't bad enough, Amaziah then brought back a whole bunch of false gods from his wars in Edom and started worshiping them. This last action led to one of my favorite godly clapbacks of all time. Why do you consult this people's gods who could not save their own people from your hand? This was a question posed to Amaziah by a prophet whom he roundly ignored. It was in ignoring the prophet that Amaziah sealed his doom. Well, ignoring the prophet and also repeatedly shouted, come at me, bro, at the king of Israel. Yeah, Amaziah got a little bit too big for his britches after his victories in Edom, and he kept going up to Jehoash like, hey, yo, fight me, let's go, son. And Jehoash is like, can you calm down? Amaziah kept saying, come at me. And finally, Jehoash came at him. Amaziah got his wish, Jehoash attacked, Judah lost, and the temple in Jerusalem was looted and completely sacked. Again. During the battle, Joash had captured Amaziah, but then had brought him back to Jerusalem so that he could watch the looting. Amaziah reigned for another 15 years, but he had so many people coming for his head that he finally ran to Lachish, where they found him and killed him. This brings us to our final king of the day. King Uzziah, also known as Azariah, was the son of Amaziah. Side note, if you're annoyed by the fact that these names are just similar enough to be annoying, you got a big storm coming. So, Uzziah. Uzziah was 16 years old when he took the throne, but he did reign for 52 years. In Uzziah, we see the influence of Jehoiada and Zechariah live on because Uzziah was instructed by Zechariah, the son of Jehoiada, in the the way of the law and in fearing of the Lord. Uzziah did a lot of rebuilding, restoring, and retaking of Judah. He established a standing army, he created cisterns for the livestock, he took good care of the land, just general infrastructure stuff. Unfortunately, his reign went a little bit too well because in the tradition of his forefathers, he got too big for his britches. So there's this Old Testament law that only the priests are allowed to burn incense to the Lord in the temple of the Lord, right? Guess what Uzziah does? So Uzziah is over here in the temple, usurping the priest's power and burning incense to the Lord. And when the priests come in, they're like, hey, yo, this is an issue. And Uzziah gets like mad, he starts raging against them. The priests are like, buddy, you might want to quit. So Uzziah, mid-rant against the priest, is struck with leprosy by God, and it appears on his forehead, and the priests are like, and they like usher him out of the temple, and Uzziah ends up dying alone. Because he has leprosy, he can never go in the temple again. Because he has leprosy, he can't be around other believers. And because he has leprosy, he cannot have his daily kingly duties ever again. It stinks to be ceremonially unclean under the law. Uzziah is now in a secondary living space, just kind of existing until he dies, and his son Jotham takes over all of his kingly duties. So what have we learned so far, kids? Well, firstly, you might want to guard against hubris because that is the main sin of the house of Judah. You haven't won jack booty, alright? God is the one who fights before you, so don't be taking credit for his wins. You are but the hammer he is using to build his house. You have no power on your own no matter how much your heart might tell you the contrary. Secondly, I've said it before and I'll say it again. It does not matter what you accomplish in this life if you have not set up your successor for success. Your goal should not be to reproduce yourself. Your goal should be to have a successor for whom God is their everything. Thirdly, I don't know how many times I've ranted about it at this point, but if you're gonna clean house, alright? Get rid of all of the Asherah poles. Not some of them, not one of them, not a few of them, all of them. Asherah poles and false gods are like fungus. If you leave even a little bit left, it will continue to grow and overtake everything around it. Alright, y'all, that is it for this week. Stay tuned next week for more of Judah shenanigans, but for now, stay safe, make wise choices, and happy Wednesday.